Every time a great NBA team emerges, people try to find some new reason as to why this team is dominant. But when it comes to building a championship team, I think people overcomplicate that process. Because when you strip everything down, all the great NBA teams follow the same structural blueprint. The Bulls, the Lakers, the Warriors, the Heat, the Spurs, and even the modern Oklahoma City Thunder. Different eras, different stars, different play styles, the same structure. And the best way to explain it is like this: building a championship NBA roster is a lot like building a house. You need a foundation, structural support, functional spacing, and a system that doesn't break under pressure. Because when one part of the structure is weak, the entire thing becomes unstable. And once you understand this blueprint, championship teams don't feel so random. Now, if you like this type of content and want to see more of it, let me know what your favorite championship roster is in NBA history. Every house starts with a foundation. If the foundation is weak, then nothing else matters. Eventually, the structure cracks under pressure. And in basketball, the foundation is the superstar. Almost every championship team has one. Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Steph Curry, Shaquille O'Neal, Tim Duncan, Nikola Jokic. These players become the centerpiece of the entire structure. But here's what I think people overcomplicate when it comes to roster building. Because yes, these players all play differently. Shaq dominated inside. Steph dominated outside. LeBron controlled the game through playmaking. Jokic manipulates defenses with his passing. But despite all those differences, their teams still required the same structural pieces. They still needed elite defenders, reliable secondary scoring, shooting, and a distinct identity. The only thing that changed was how those pieces were used. And that's the key. Whether you're Steph, Shaq, or LeBron, all three needed shooters and defenders. The structure remained consistent. The application changed. And I think that's what people miss when discussing championship teams. We focus so much on stylistic differences and that we ignored the structural similarities. Now, here's something important: the foundation alone doesn't support the entire house. You need a frame. The frame distributes weight throughout the entire structure. Without it, all the pressure collapses on the foundation itself. In basketball, the frame is the second option, and every championship team has one. Jordan had Scottie, Shaq had Kobe, Kobe had Pau Gasol, LeBron had Wade, Kyrie, and Anthony Davis. Even Jokic had Jamal Murray. Steph had Clay and eventually Kevin Durant. The reason this matters is because playoff basketball is designed to overload stars. The deeper you go into the postseason, defenses get smarter, rotations get tighter, weaknesses get hunted, and the offensive pressure increases. The second option prevents the structure from collapsing under that pressure. And notice something important: the second option doesn't always have to be as good as the superstar, but they need to be reliable, scalable, and capable of stabilizing possessions when the defense adjusts. That's why this role matters so much. Championship teams aren't asking one player to carry the entire structure offensively. Now we get to what I think is the most misunderstood part of championship teams: the support beams. Support beams stabilize the structure. They absorb stress. They stop collapses when pressure hits. In basketball, support beams are elite defenders, and this is a pattern that repeats across almost every dynasty. Championship teams consistently have 2 to 3 elite defenders. Not good defenders, not a bunch of people that just try hard. Elite. The Bulls had Pippen, Rodman, and Harper. The Warriors had Draymond Green, Andre Iguodala, and Klay Thompson. The Celtics had Drew Holiday, Derek White, and a host of versatile wing defenders. And the reason this matters is simple: playoff basketball attacks weaknesses relentlessly. Every possession becomes targeted. If you can't defend, you get hunted. Elite defenders stabilize rotations, protect weak points, create transition opportunities, and provide lineup flexibility. And honestly, elite defenders are probably the hardest role to replace in the NBA because great scorers exist everywhere. But defenders who switch, rotate, communicate, protect the rim, and fit the offensive scheme, those players are incredibly rare. That's why championship teams prioritize them constantly. Now let's talk about walls and rooms. Walls create space, but more importantly, they create functional rooms. Every room in a house has a different purpose. And in basketball, shooters create those functional spaces offensively. This is why every championship team also has 2 to 3 elite shooters or floor spacers. Spacing opens up driving lanes, punishes help defense, and creates offensive flexibility, and it also allows stars to operate more efficiently. But different shooters create different offensive rooms. Corner shooters create isolation space, movement shooters create chaos, stretch bigs pull rim protectors away from the basket, pull-up shooters force defenders higher up on the floor, and that's what makes offenses dynamic. And again, this exists in every era. The Bulls had Kerr, Paxson, Kukoc. The Lakers had Fisher and Horry. The Cavs had Kyrie with Kevin Love and J.R. Smith. The Warriors basically weaponized spacing entirely. Different eras, same structural principle. Now, this might actually be the most underrated part of the structure, which is the roof. Not only does it tie everything together, but it protects the structure and it determines how the house survives pressure. Now, this might actually be the most underrated part of the entire structure, the roof. The roof ties everything together. It protects the structure and it determines how the house survives pressure. In basketball, the roof is team identity, and the best championship teams always know exactly who they are. Some teams are defensive first teams that can score. Others are offensive machines that can defend. The 2004 Detroit Pistons built their identity around defense and physicality. The Warriors built theirs around movement, spacing, and pace. The Spurs built theirs around execution, discipline, and adaptability. And the modern Oklahoma City Thunder, they have a very clear identity as well. Defensive pressure, athleticism, and relentless pace. That's why they feel so overwhelming. Not because they discovered a basketball secret that no one else understands, but because structurally everything fits together. And this is important because some teams build rosters that fundamentally contradict their own identity. That creates structural confusion. And this brings us to the final piece, structural imbalance. Because even a beautiful home on the outside can have some serious internal flaws structurally. Take Luka Doncic, for example. People constantly say Luka needs to become a better defender. And yes, becoming a better defender individually will help. If your foundation has defensive weaknesses, then your support beams have to absorb more pressure. That means elite perimeter defenders become mandatory. Rim protection becomes mandatory. Rotations are a lot more difficult and fatigue increases. Now, the structure is compensating constantly. This is also why teams with multiple defensive liabilities struggle to reach championship levels constantly, because eventually something has to give, and the playoffs expose every imbalance possible. This is why simply stacking talent together doesn't always work, because championship teams aren't just a collection of great players, they're balanced structures. Responsibilities are distributed correctly, weaknesses are reinforced correctly, roles fit together correctly, and that's the difference. So maybe this entire video is oversimplifying basketball because personalities clash, injuries happen, and front offices make mistakes. Basketball is complicated, but maybe we're also overcomplicating something that championship teams have understood for decades, because when you look at NBA history, the blueprint has stayed the same. Players change, eras change, and styles change, but the architecture stays the same. And once you understand that, then great NBA teams stop feeling so mysterious and random, and you realize that these teams aren't just put together, but they're engineered for success. Now, if you like this type of content and want to see more of it, hit that like and subscribe button. And in the comments below, let me know who you think will be the next great team in the NBA. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Peace.